So, Dusty, fast forward.
There's more resources that Nebraska has to offer than what I knew about.
And I think that's what's really cool about your business.
It's Friday.
Hey, and short work week. Did we get anything done this week?
No, absolutely not. Who decided to have a holiday in the middle of the week? Should be illegal.
Well, obviously not I.
Yeah.
And we did a little bit of work on Monday, and we recovered from our golf classic where we had 144 golfers. Actually, 143. I think one team had 3. But gosh, what an awesome event. We capped that off. Like I said, 36 golf teams. We had 18 hole sponsors out there. We had chipping sponsors, the putting green sponsor, the driving range sponsor, the clubhouse sponsor, registration sponsor, breakfast sponsor, lunch and meal sponsors.
And I had
the
Porsche of a golf cart that was a sponsor.
So McNews Unlimited came through with 3 golf carts, 2 for my team, which was really cool. Lithium-ion battery one and then a gas one. They were really sweet. And then Riley was in a jacked up, fold down seats.
I'm surprised it didn't have spinners on the wheels. To be honest.
it was the marketing machine.
And, most people made a comment when I would come rolling up. They're like, "Dang," and I was like, "It's for sale."
It's not quite as cool as Dusty's car, that they have for Fast Forward, but I feel like it's a good segue to introduce Dusty, our guest, which is not his first time on the Make a Move podcast, first time on Chamber Chatter.
Right.
But you've had him on before.
I have. Yeah. Me and Kirk had him. It would have been in June of 2022. So if you want to go back to episode 27, you can probably get a little bit deeper dive into like your history of like just all the startups you've done. And it's a pretty unique, crazy story. The laundromat stuff and then your archery. It's crazy. It's awesome.
Making moves.
I
love it. You know, I don't have all the history with Dusty. I think last time we hung out, Dusty, was Loper Backer Banquet. Was the last time I saw you. So we went and supported Loper football and had a nice evening with our wives and some other couples. And that was a good time.
They had a good fundraiser too.
Yeah. So Dusty, fast forward. What's new right now? Like what's get us up to speed, and obviously got a ribbon cutting coming up, and you're always making moves, but catch us up to speed.
Sure. So last time we spoke was, like I said, June of last year. And at that time we hadn't tested any of our technology yet. So we were still waiting for cameras to come in. And so from an update since then was essentially a good summary would be to summarize what we did last year. So we got these cameras in, mounted them on top of a car. And our goal is that if power utilities can do inspections more frequently, it can directly prevent power outages and wildfires. So we got the cameras in. We did a patrol of 1,200 miles in 6 nights for 5 different utilities across the state. So they all randomly picked about 200 miles. We went out and drove each night for each utility. We inspected about 19,000 poles. We found over 300 thermal anomalies across those 5 utilities. And then they went out and started making repairs to validate if what we found was actually real stuff. It worked out really well. They went out and validated that what we found were real issues. Utilities started making repairs. Unfortunately, in some of those areas, lists were a little bit larger than others. We had some utilities report back that they've since had outages on things that we flagged, but they just didn't get to it yet, and it caused an outage. Mm-hmm. So we proved that the proactive addressing of those issues will prevent outages. A little bit of background about our technology and why we're doing this. Temperature is invisible to the human eye. So like we can touch temperature and feel something's hot, but visually we can't. And in electrical applications, when components break down, a byproduct of that failure is heat. And so there's components that are still carrying electricity, lights are still on, but they're overheating. And so by using a thermal camera, you can see that this is failing. And with a fast enough workflow, you could report it to the utility. They can go out and make that repair and prevent an outage. Well, the reason wildfires come into play, except with the exception of this year, because we've gotten so much rain.
Right.
But typically when the components fail, sparks fall to the ground, and then that's when a fire can start. And so by directly preventing the outage altogether, you have a direct impact on wildfire potential. And so that's what we've been doing. Completed our pilot projects last year. We were ahead of schedule. So we did City of Cozad, which is a small municipality just west of here, to test that technology in an urban environment. That worked well. So we had the metrics and business case to say that this is going to work. So we're raising another fundraising round. But with that, I went ahead and hired 3 more people, 2 of which are from Kearney. So we created 2 more Kearney jobs. The other one is a remote role. But so we've been able to expand the team to a 5 now.
Nice. So you're not solo.
No, not solo anymore. And starting in February was when our sales initiative started. We've expanded to 15 states since February.
Wow.
So from an economic standpoint, we're based in Kearney, Nebraska, but our technology is being used literally across the nation now. And all of that revenue and stuff will come right back to Kearney, and you guys get to tax it.
Yeah. Hey, we like that, right? We need that too. I think it's fascinating. I've told a lot of people often, I'm like, hey, Dusty's humble, but I'm like, next big thing is here in Kearney, and Dusty, you've got a major part of that. The technology alone in your business is fascinating. I remember, a year ago or so when I was in your office and looking at how you can basically pinpoint, come within a centimeter of certain measurements and things. So the technology's got to be just absurd. And obviously there's a huge capital cost to that. And so you've been very wise and fortunate to learn a lot through your serial entrepreneurship, but then also find ways to access funds, right? I mean, Nebraska has, a lot of different venture capital or Invest Nebraska and a lot of different, NMotion. They've got opportunities for entrepreneurs. What would you say is maybe something that you would what have you learned, and maybe just like a piece of advice for entrepreneurs, whether it's a technology business, which almost every business needs to be technology driven now and then vertically integrated. But what would you give some advice to an entrepreneur?
There's more resources that Nebraska has to offer than what I knew about. So when you start any business, you need capital. Some businesses are more capital intensive than others. I've utilized capital from investment rounds, but then I've also received grants and non-dilutive funding that I didn't even know existed until I was shared with that. The Nebraska Department of Economic Development, in addition to grants that they offer for startups, they have other resources. Like there's some communities have them local where you can go in and they'll help you write a business plan for free. Like they don't charge for that. There's other resources outside of money that the state and local communities offer that I didn't know existed. When I did my first startup, I was just using what I learned in college and what I could read online to stumble through building a business plan and try to make it on my own. Having gone through NMotion, they opened some doors and some key network connections that was like, wow, I didn't even know this existed. And so a lot of the success that we've had over the last couple of years has been a result of learning about programs that are already in place that I just didn't know about.
To touch on something that me and you were talking about before we started was that networking and that relationship building piece. Don't try to build your relationship when you're going in for your ass, because then you just look like a crazy person.
Yeah.
Get plugged in and build those relationships, and don't write yourself off that like, they don't care about me or some. Man, get in there and talk to the people, and that's
you've got to establish the relationship before you know that you need something, and sometimes it's just nice to meet people, right?
Yeah.
But if you wait to go to the state and ask for money until you actually need it, it's too late. And so we've received multiple grants from the state of Nebraska, and this is specifically the second one was as a result of our performance on the first one. And the performance on the first one was based on traction we had done and well before we ever approached the state that we were going to need money. So the state has a lot of great resources, and having gone through the programs, there is a focus in Nebraska on helping startups and rural economic stuff. The eastern side of the state gets a lot of attention just primarily due to population, right? There's a lot going on in Lincoln and Omaha, but there are programs that are geared towards helping central and western Nebraska. So you just got to reach out to people that know about them, and they'll help you through that. So.
And you can go back and listen to other episodes of Make a Move where we've talked to Invest Nebraska, the Combine, We've talked to, let's see here, drawn
You
blank.
even had former director Tony Goings
Yep,
on there at
yep.
one time. And
Yep. He's from Ravenna. I'm completely blowing this.
Did you have Grain Weevil people?
We had Grain Weevil.
They're doing
Shane
great.
Ferreter
Okay.
with Virtual Incision. So that's his offices are based in Innovation Campus. And
yeah, Unreal Business.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing.
yeah, there's and it's just so cool. Like everybody thinks that Nebraska is the flyover state, but like, man, there's some amazing things that take place right here.
Yeah,
Sure.
the innovation's great, and that's where Fast Forward is coming to that. I got a question, a little different topic, but with Fast Forward, where'd the name come from? I'm assuming I look at the branding and I see the colors, so I'm assuming it's kind of a heat map color, and I'm like, okay, I get that vibe there. Where did Fast Forward come from?
So the name that we picked prior was kind of like a knee-jerk reaction of we just needed a name so we could, one, order some stuff and establish a business, and
Yeah.
had a lot of, not complaints, but just people didn't really like the name. I don't need to mention it, but it wasn't that good. But when we did a rebranding, it was, I was going to hire people, I was going to raise another round, and then we were actually launching a product, and it was like, we need to come up with a better name. And so we were trying to think of, how do we name this? And so we just did a brainstorming session on all the stuff that we're doing. And the traditional process for utilities is they pick an inspection cycle based on challenges that they're having in their geography, and they pick different methodologies to address outages or issues that they're having. But by and large, that inspection cycle for most rural utilities can take up to 10 years. And they do a portion of their system every year, a combination of methods, but it's based on a 10-year cycle. And with what we're able to do, we're able to patrol and inspect an entire system from the road, or the poles that are accessible from the road, in less than a month. An average utility in Nebraska is about 3,000 miles. We can cover about 300 miles a day, so we can do a whole system in less than 2 weeks that would normally have taken 10 years. And so what we're really doing is we're accelerating utilities' ability to patrol their system and moving it fast forward. And so we were looking for words that related to media, because we're dealing with photos and video.
Mm-hmm.
And so the whole fast forward and the little logo, like on the old VCR thing,
Yeah.
just kind of plug it. Well, that's a really old thing that some may not know what it means because we don't have VCRs anymore. So that's kind of where the name come from, was just our ability to accelerate a traditional methodology that's not gotten much attention in a long time.
Yeah, no, I like it. And like I said, the colors, I was like, okay, I like the color. I mean, the colors look good together anyway, but then it relates to the business.
Yeah.
So that's cool. And it makes sense now, right? Fast forward, I get it. You know, you talk about the technology. How fast can your car? What is kind of the speed that car can drive and capture all the data and everything, all the information that it needs?
So the testing that we did last year, we found that we were successful at about 35 miles an hour. We can drive a little bit faster. The challenge is we're driving dirt roads. So a lot of other vehicle-based mapping companies out there, there's a really large one that everybody uses, but they only do streets and cities, and they only take photos. They don't do any technical analysis or use thermal images. Well, we're driving dirt roads and alleyways and all the neglected areas of rural America, and the road conditions don't limit, or in some ways limit you. Like some areas we have to drive slower because the washboards are worse on the road, and so we have to drive a little slower. It's not the vibration, it's more of a safety thing. And you're driving at night. In Nebraska, we do a lot of that thermal inspection during the summer, which is irrigation season. So the corn grows, and so you have blind intersections. And a lot of these intersections in the country don't have stop signs. So you have a four-way intersection, and you can't see cars coming because the corn's so tall. So we found that we could still safely drive at about 35 miles an hour at night and still have a substantial number of coverage compared to other methods. One of my prior startups was a drone company. People often ask, like, were we the drone company during the 2019? Where there's that was not us. There were people claim that it was us, and I'm sitting on my couch and it's like, it's definitely not us.
Awesome.
Believe what you want, not us. But from an inspection standpoint, we were Nebraska's premier inspection company for power lines. So I know intricately the value of what a drone can do. But even my best pilots, we could only get 200 to 300 poles per day, just based on the inefficiencies of a drone, even though it can fly across a pasture, it still has to come back, you land, move the car. So it's super effective in some applications, but along a road, there's no contest. We can cover 5,000 to 6,000 poles per day, where a drone could only cover 200 to 300. And so it's that economics that make it really economical for the utility. But what's really good about what we do for the utility from a dollar standpoint is times are tough right now, economy wise. Like, there's rising prices everywhere. Mm-hmm. And the last thing that a household wants to have to deal with is a rising electric bill, because that's a cost that they're used to being relatively fixed, right? And so utilities are trying to do everything they can to not raise rates and keep costs low. And every outage that happens adds to their expenditures for the year. We're able to implement our technology system-wide and have arranged it in a way that a utility can do this without increasing rates to their consumer. So they can implement this technology at a more frequent basis, prevent more outages, and the consumer doesn't have to worry about their electric bill going up because the utility's investing in new technology or that there's more outages than normal. So we're really helping not just the utility, but the consumer and the ratepayer, because we're helping them keep their electric rates low.
And that's huge. And we talk about that all the time. Obviously, my role as MPPD board member, we talk about affordable, reliable energy. The caveat to that too is when you look at, we want rates low, but when you have an outage that's unplanned,
mm-hmm.
That's a lot of, it could be way more hours.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a planned outage because of your technology uncovered a faulty mechanism, right? That's saying, hey, this is getting too hot, it's going to go bad. Well, now they can plan the outage, and now you're probably cutting that time in half or whatever. I don't know the exact number, but you're saving minutes and minutes, hours for that time being down, which, hey, let's get the lights back on, which is great for everybody.
Sure.
The user and the utility company. So yeah, that's huge. I think that's what maybe consumers don't realize. Cause we flip on the lights. It's great. Things are working. Yeah. We don't understand everything from the substation to, Gerald Gentleman Station or whatever it is. Right. Mm-hmm. And everything in between, and where you can come in and help with that, is huge. And then I'm fascinated by the safety and the prevention of dangerous stuff,
mm-hmm.
right? It could be a wildfire. It could be something else where, kids playing under a line or something.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking life and death. And I think that's what's really cool about your business is how broad it is. It's not just a technology, camera, thermal imaging
mm-hmm.
business. Is you've got so many things that you can argue. And that's why you obviously have been successful in your grant funding and finding investors, because it can resonate with a variety of people wherever you're landing at.
Sure.
So it's awesome.
Time is one major factor, because that's what the consumer sees. Some of the other challenges that utilities are dealing with right now is material procurement. So there is shortages of poles and transformers that when I was in the electrical business, I worked for a large corporation that manufactured these types of components, and they were like 4 to 8 week lead times, and a utility can budget for that. Well, what happened with 2020 to 2022, there was a depletion of inventory at the manufacturer level that was delayed, that ends up getting to the utility a few years later. Is those same components that had 8 week lead times for those same components are 2 to 3 years.
Oh my gosh.
And so what happens is,
so not to interrupt you, Dusty, but a transformer, we just approved a transformer 40 months.
That is crazy. Out. And it
40
costs
months
more than what you would have bought if it was.
Yeah, I think it was like 9 million.
Yeah.
Like 9 million.
And so what happens is, because the lead times go out, you have all these utilities saying, well, now we need to buy in advance. Well, then you have this rush to the manufacturer to orders are skyrocketing because people are buying more. Well, what do you do when demand goes up? You raise price. So now utilities are having to forecast much further in advance, pay more in advance, and that just all trickles down to the ratepayer. There's so many challenges. So if we can identify, we had an outage that we prevented last year where we flagged a utility, a set of transformers that were over like 230 degrees, like more than boiling, right? From a water standpoint, there's not water in the transformer,
Right.
but hot,
That's
right? And it was at a dairy farm in the middle of the summer, and they didn't know that it was an issue. Well, if you lose power at a dairy farm, you have spoiled milk. Like it's not just you lose air conditioning, like they lose their inventory. And so you've got this industrial and commercial market that is very dependent upon reliable electricity. And the utility didn't have extra transformers. Like that would have been a bad issue. So for them to be able to go and establish, we figured out what the problem was. They were able to have a controlled outage, swap transformers, and one, prevent an outage, but really it prevented a really bad situation of where there's material components that are short.
Yeah. Can you imagine not being able to milk, 900 head of dairy cattle?
gosh.
Or whatever?
And
I mean,
throw
they're
away
all
all the-
robotic now,
Yeah.
right? They go in, they move them in. And I mean, could you imagine if you couldn't milk?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because you're not doing it by hand like my dad used to. Jeez.
Or the chicken farms that rely on air conditioning to keep those pens cool. Like if you lose power in the middle of the summer for a few hours, you lose your stock. So time is critical, but also there's a substantial inventory shortage right now. And that is just adds all that complexity that the utilities are burdening that the consumer don't really know about. Cause as long as the lights come on, they don't know, the inner workings behind the scenes that go in to make that, to keep the lights on. So shout out to the utilities that make it happen. Cause it's hard and the average person doesn't know how hard it actually is.
No, that's awesome. Right here in Kearney, Nebraska, Riley, we've got,
right?
Just a fascinating business, and we've got a lot of them. But Dusty, we appreciate your time. We appreciate everything that you do, your investment in Kearney. I think that's really cool. I remember you telling the story about why you stayed in Kearney, and I think there's a lot of neat reasons. But I think we just really appreciate that you've said, "Hey, I'm gonna make Kearney my home," and with you and your family, and that's just awesome. So thanks for all you're doing there. We would love to say, hey, this episode of Chamber Chatter is sponsored by so
right.
and so, but hey, we're still looking for a sponsor, Riley.
Right, I know.
So look for your email and contact Riley. We'll do a social media post too to recruit some sponsors, because we would love to shout you out, right? And saying, hey, give you a quick commercial online, whether it's at the end, in the middle, at the beginning.
That's right.
Because Chamber Chatter's going to blow up, and we are worldwide.
It
We're
is.
global.
It's global.
Well, we have our ribbon cutting next week that you guys are putting on for us.
Yep.
So that's Friday, the 14th at 10 o'clock. We'll have the car there, doors open, and have the system online so people can check out what we're building. So,
Nice. Do you know what else Dusty supports in Kearney, Nebraska?
No, I don't.
The Derek Rusher garage sale.
That's true. My wife goes, I saw Shay the other day because I said something about Dusty, and because I saw Shay. She stopped in the garage sale. My wife, bless her heart, having another garage sale. We've got a lot of stuff, right? And with 5 daughters,
well, that
we've
was
got a
the
lot of
thing.
clothes.
We saw Rushers are having a garage sale, and we got a daughter, and you got 4 or 5 of them. So there's got to be something there that'll fit our daughter.
4 or 5. I lose track.
Hey, Riley here. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Make a Move podcast. For more content, check us out on all major social media platforms and makeamovepodcast.com. Until next time, get off your butt and make a move.